theyeshiva.net.
Okay, so we are at the end of Siv Beis. We're going to start from the word Gidden. Gidden. You know what? The line that starts Ha'asaga, page Ayin Ches, column 1, on top it says Pinchas. The Maimer is Savas B'nai Yisrael, 155, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines from the top. Ela Ha'asaga Ha'mislabeshes B'midis, Hibchines Ha'orim B'tzumtzemes Ma'at Miz'er Me'asaga Shebemoyach, Hanimshreches L'Islabesh B'leiv Mekayim Hamidis. The comprehension that is manifested, enclosed, mislabeshes from the word levush, enclosed in midos, is a restricted ray, a little bit that comes from the comprehension in the brain, and it comes into the heart. In other words, the transition between the moyach and midos requires a tzimtzum, requires a restriction, as explained at length. That comprehension, understanding always allows for the person to go beyond his or her own condition and experience. That's what real seichel is. You're searching for truth. You're not searching for benefits. You're searching for truth. Midos is about personal excitement. That transition always requires a tzimtzum to make it relevant to me. In seichel, it's I ask not who I am. In midos, I have to ask who I am. Seichel, my experience is irrelevant, which could be the problem of Seichel. Sometimes you have lamashal young men or women who academically in yeshiva were extremely successful, but they never developed as human beings. They didn't have to, because the books could become a substitute for the human experience. You know what I mean? You're like, all the teachers are praising you, the principals are praising you, you're the genius, you're the future Rabban Shel Kol B'nai Hagoyla. Aber du bist kein Mensch nicht. In other words, he never had to develop emotionally because it was a great escape. Because it's not about you, it's about learning the material. And that's why midos is such an important element, but it requires tzimtzum, it requires condensing, restricting, compressing the information to be able to be relevant to the human. How is this now relevant to my life? Oh, who's talking about you? It's egotistical, but that's the point of midas. The point of midas is how it speaks to me, what it does for me as a human being. Yes, in midas I exist. If I don't exist emotionally, there's no emotion. People who don't think they exist can't really have emotion. They can't have emotion. It's too threatening. It's too overwhelming. So that's where you need the moichet coming into midas. V'heim p'chines gidin v'orkim ha'mechabrim ha'tzamas ha'mabasa. These are the gidin, the sinews, the arteries, arkim are the arteries, which connect the bones with the flesh. The atzama is connected to mayach, and the basar connected to dam, to blood. Mayach is moichin, and dam represents the place of the heart in midas. K'may shekasav, on this the pasuk says in Ashrei, Lohidia livnei ha'adam gvuroisav uchvoid hadar malchusay malchuscha malchus kalaylam. What is the meaning of this when you say Ashrei? Hein ha'gvuras v'atzimtzumim k'may derech gidim dakim al derech moshe. Just like the blood must flow through gidim dakim, which means very thin, tiny gidim, tiny veins and arteries, they're tzinoiris, they're channels, and therefore Chalila, there's a hemorrhage, right? And the gid bursts. We don't have to speak. The medical results could be Chalila disastrous and catastrophic, because the blood has to be channeled. Derech gidim dakim, the transitions, everything that comes from the mayach has to come through in the right balance, in appropriate portions. Gidim dakim. Lohidia livnei adam gvuraisa. What's pshat? Lohidia livnei adam. When Hashem wants to give a yediyah, He wants to let the information be known by Bnei Adam, it must go through Gvura. Gvura is always the Koyach HaTzimtzum. Gvura is the discipline to channel the energy in a way that relates to the particular person. That's what Gvura is. Gvura is not cruelty. Gvura is the unique understanding of the channels that this person needs. That's even what Gvura means in the Chinuch, for example. What is the idea of discipline? The idea of discipline is I'm actually thinking more about you, not less about you. Giving you the extra candy or the extra ice cream or letting you get away with whatever, you're a little kid, you don't have to go to sleep ever, that's chesed, but so I'm not thinking about you. I'm just thinking, what's easy and you're so cute. When I think about you and your long-term benefits, that's where discipline comes in. So all of Gvura is always a unique sensitivity to the particular condition of that person. Lohidia livnei ha'adam gvuroisa v'chvoid adar malchusai. When you want, there should be able to be lohidia livnei ha'adam. Like the expression, the transition from moichin to midas, it has to go through the Gvuras and Tzimtzumim, and that's when we can appreciate the malchus chamalchus kaloi lamim. Because if not, we can't appreciate it. Siv Gimel. There's a parenthesis now explaining these concepts in the Oasis of Nister and the Oasis of Kabbalah, but we'll go to Siv Gimel. Next paragraph. Tefillah is in lieu of karbonis. So every experience of karbonis exists in tefillah. When Chazal say tefillah is abamakam karbonis, it's not just tam, some comparison. It means that the institution of tefillah really is the institution of karbonis, even though, of course, the expression is a very different one. So every component that you had in karbonis, you have in tefillah. So we know, go back to the carbon oila. You have the sheep in the morning, the sheep in the afternoon, shachris and mincha. What do you have? You have the skin with the wool that goes to the kohen. Then you have what goes on the mizbeach. What goes on the mizbeach is the whole behemoth. What's pshat? The chayil of the fat, the dam, the blood, the basar, the meat, the atzamais, the skeletons, the gidim, the sinews. As he said before, that the basar and the gidin and the atzamais and the chaylev and the dam, that's 5 things. You have the flesh, and you have the fats, and you have the blood, and you have the skeleton, the bones, and you have the arteries. That all gets burnt on the mizbeach. And then you have the oir and the tzemer, the skin and the wool that goes to the kohen. So he started to explain what is basar, gidin, and atzamais, spiritually speaking. Atzamais represents the mayach, and basar represents the dam, and gidin is what connects them. So he says, now let's go to tefillah. Shahis Bainus Bigdula Saint Soif Baruchu Eich de Kula can make Kaloi Mamish Chashivi. The Ein Aroiche Lava Filuka Erich Tipa Miyam Ukionis Kanisker Lael Hupchines Ha'atsamais. Tefillah also has the bones. The bones of Tefillah represents the Hisboinenus. Hisboinenus is reflection, meditation, contemplation. Hisboinenus from the word Bina, Lihisboinen. Avinu avaracham and racham na aleinu v'seim b'libeinu bina. Bina, his boinus, lahavinu, lahaskel. That concept of his boinus from the word tvuna, bina, navoinim, chachamim and navoinim, that's the his boinus, the contemplation. B'gdula Saint Soif Baruch. In the Gdula Saint Soif Baruch, Gdula here doesn't mean only largeness. Gdula really means the infinity, the absolute infinity of Ein Soif Baruch, which is infinite. That kula kamei kalei mamish chashivi, which is bainanus. That kula kamei kalei mamish chashivi. That everything, he now goes back to the beginning, where he spoke about the whole transition. You remember? Me'ayin liyesh. Everything here is a very intricate structure. Before the creation of the world, hu u'shmai bilvad. Shmai is what? The koyach eliki that comes into the bria. We'll later call it mamala kalalman. That koyach eliki, where was it? It was all there, but it was within him. Back to the metaphor of the light wave in the solar core. It's all there. The light that the sun emits to the entire planet and to all the other planets. Everybody gets illuminated from the sun, including the moon. All that light, that tremendous amount of light and heat and warmth, it's all in the sun. If it's out of the sun, it's in the sun. It doesn't begin out of the sun, but in the sun. Doesn't occupy space. Nobody talks about it. You don't go for a tour to the sun and say, here, let me show you that ray in the sun. There's something much larger going on. And here he introduces the Atlantic Ocean, the Okeanos. I want to show you water. And I come and I take a cup of water and we come to the Atlantic and I point to a drop of water. I put a drop of water in a cup and I say, here is the Atlantic. I'm sorry, this is not the Atlantic. This is a cup of water. When you're away from the Atlantic, you're in a desert, a cup of water is very, very significant. Just like if you're in a dark cellar and somebody opens a window and you get a ray of light, it's very significant. But in the sun itself, it's there, but it doesn't have its own chashivas. It doesn't have its own significance. Creation, what was creation? Creation basically, from God's perspective, didn't change anything. All creation did was, it made that which was unnoticeable, noticeable. It made that which we didn't notice before, which was called ayin, it made that yesh. Before it was there, and it was ayin. As a result of creation, it becomes yesh. So what did creation really do? Creation allowed us to zoom in on the component of divine energy that is completely submerged in his essence, that it should be able to become noticeable. It should occupy a space. Why? Because we don't see the sun. All we see is the ray, and the ray is extremely powerful. And that ray itself descends and descends and descends and descends and descends, and in this world you don't even see a ray. You just see a physical universe, and you have to study it, and deduct and deduce, and go deeper and deeper and deeper until you can excavate the ayin in the universe, which is the ruchnius and the gashmius. And then you go to the higher world, and that ruchnius becomes a yesh in the higher world, and you go for the deeper ruchnius, etc. Like you spoke before, right? You remember the grass, and the mazel, and the ifanim, and the chayis, and the srafim, and the aryeh, pnei aryeh le'em, and that was the whole process of karbanos, the whole process of tefillah. It says the core of davening, the skeleton of davening is hisbonenus. The skeleton of davening is awareness, the mindful connection to an idea, hisbonenus. Before emotion, we're talking now hisbonenus. We're talking about the skeleton, the bones, the atzamas. What is it? The kula mamish kaloi mamish, the kula kamei kaloi mamish chashiv. In his presence, nothing is separate. Nothing has its own chashivas. Like the mashal I gave you with the teacher who gives a shiur, and one of the students says, I don't understand, and he says, I'll give you a mashal. Where was this mashal before? Did he know the mashal or did he not know the mashal? The teacher. He didn't suddenly develop a whole new idea. Of course he knew the mashal, but he didn't have to know the mashal because he understood the Gemara. The mashal was just swallowed up somewhere in the Atlantic. It was just a drop of water. For the student can't deal with the ocean, it's too big. So he takes a drop out of the ocean. He says, here's this drop. From this you'll have access to the Atlantic. When you're the ocean, you don't notice the drops. The drops are there, but you don't notice them. They're considered ayin. Not that they're not there, but they don't have chashivus. That's what it means. Kula kamei. Kamei means in front of him, in his presence, from his perspective. When you look at the world from the divine perspective, there's no separateness. Kiloi mamish chashivi. It doesn't have an erech. Afilu ke'erech tipa miyam. Even the tipa minayam is not a good example. Because over there, ultimately, the Gemara in Hoydiyas, Daf Yud, Rabbi Yeshua said, Yechoilni l'shayir kama tipas yesh bayam. Rabbi Yeshua said, I can estimate how many drops of water there are in the Mediterranean. He says, I can estimate it. In other words, it's countable. We're not dealing with real Ein Sof. Yes, I mean, the Atlantic is pretty big in terms of drops of water. You know, it's a little more than the millions or the billions. But the point is, ultimately, it's made up of drops. It's made up of drops. And if it's made up of drops, so it's gvul legabe gvul. It's finite legabe huge, huge numbers beyond our estimation. Right? But it's still a number relative to another number. And you know, a person can own $30 million. A dollar is not very significant, but it's significant. V'haraya, if you'll take away $1 after another, usually people who have that, by them dollars are more significant, right? The old Chassidish word, al tiftechu b'nedivim. Don't rely on philanthropists. B'ven adam she'ein loy teshua. Guy who doesn't have, he'll help you. The hest. But ultimately, $30 million are made up of single dollars. If you're going to take one and one and one and one away, it's going to get decreased at some point. But here we're not dealing with gvul l'gabi gvul. That's why he says even the tippa is not a good example. Hu b'chinas ha'atzmus. This is the atzamais, the bones of davening.
Why is this in the lave?
It's not in the lave.
It says,
Huh? Okay. I was just giving an example of the word bina, because over there you're asking for something else. You wanted you're asking that it should go to the heart. We'll soon see. But in order for it to be like the atzamais, the bones, you need that the isbaininus should be b'chinas das. What's das? Das means it's not a temporary meditation. Das is miloshin ha'adam yada es chava. He knew chava, meaning it's tkua b'chayzik b'kviyas tamet. It's a real das. It's real awareness. It's powerful awareness. It's not you have some momentary knowledge and after davening it's all over. He's diligent. It's deep. There's depth there, and when it's deep, it's true. It's be'emes lamita. Shemei hadas hazenim shecha ha'ara derech gidim daken lebchinas basar hanem sheches b'chinas dam halev. This das will now send off a ray through the thin arteries to the meat, to the flesh, which is connected to the blood of the heart, shomakir hamidus, which spiritually means the source of the midus shebenefesh habahamas. The various emotions of the animal soul represented by the blood of the heart, because the pasuk says, Ki nefesh habasar bedamhi. The blood is seen as the seat of the animal soul. The blood is seen as the seat of the consciousness, of the soul, of the life force of a person. Which is why there's a certain respect for blood. There's the concept of kisui hadam. We associate the dam with the nefesh. The pasuk says, Hadam hu nefesh. The blood is the soul. So the blood represents the smidus of the benefesh habahamas, whether it's avera. Avera means all types of broken love. Ra in Lashon Kodesh means bad. The real source of Ra is like in Baba Kama, Kaisel Ra'ua, a broken wall, a weak wall. In Koheles, Hevel Uru'us Ruach, brokenness. All avas that are broken. You love something because you're a broken person. That's why you love. A lot of people love things, or they say they love it. Why? Because they're broken. If they were wholesome, they wouldn't have to love it. They're broken, and this is going to numb them. This is what's called avaram. That's what makes it a bad love. What's called a bad love? It's a destructive love. Or, he says, taivas gashmiyas, or material addictions, or nitzuach, the need to win. When you have to win every argument, you have to win every war, you have to win every battle, nobody can ever be right, you don't know how to say I'm sorry. That's nitzuach. Nitzuach means you always have to win. You always have to be on the top. You could never ever be vulnerable. Anybody has this issue? Next is hispirus. Hispirus means you always have to boast. If you don't boast or somebody doesn't boast you, you don't exist. You always need to either boast about yourself or you need somebody else to boast about you. Without that, the conversation is worthless. There's never space for somebody else, right? Like the woman who once said she stopped dating because for 3 hours, the last date, for 3 hours, all the guy was talking about was himself. I did this, I like this, I accomplished this, I do this, I don't like this, I go here, I don't go there. After 3 hours, he turns to her and he says, you know, it's enough of me talking about myself. Let me hear, what do you have to say about me? So you have that condition in life, it's hispirus. Hispirus means everything has to be about boasting. There's nothing else. That's the experience, that's the nature of the conversation. Some people are just in that mode. Canal. So when you have the arteries that transfer the das to the blood, to the meat, what can happen now is leikafion line. You could challenge these emotions, these instincts. Ulahafchan. Furthermore, you can transform them. Likdushas hanefesh elikis. To become enveloped and saturated by the sanctity of the divine soul. Hamaskelis umizbainenis bigdula Ein Sof Baruch Hu, which is the primary force that understands Ein Sof. The nefesh elikis gets it. The nefesh elikis knows Ein Sof because it's part of that reality. It's sensitive to it. The nefesh elikis communicates with the nefesh habahamas, which is in the blood, and as a result of that, the midos that come from there can be, first of all, challenged, and second of all, transformed. The pasuk says, so what does the Mishnah say in Brachas? Nun daled b'shnei yitzarecha. What's pshat b'shnei yitzarecha? Shegam ha-yitzhara shemishkane b'lev b'chol asmoile amalei dam yoshev la'avasi yisbarach. Also the yitzhara who dwells primarily in the heart, in the left ventricle, which generates the blood. Malei dam doesn't only mean it's full of blood. The right ventricle also has blood. Malei dam means it's filled with blood. It generates the blood. What happens is Yoshev la'avasa yisbarach, that should be restored to, from the broken ava, it should come to avasa yisbarach, to love Hashem, which basically means the love of real reality, as we will see in a moment. After the parentheses, 5 lines. This concept is what we say in Shema. We say Shema Yisrael. Listen, Israel. Listen, hear, O Israel. What does Shema mean? Hear? Shema, he says, is Lashon Havana. In Lashon Kodesh, Shema doesn't only mean to hear, but derheren, to understand. We have Daber ki shomeya avdecha. Speak, because your servant is listening. Meaning, he's tuning in, he's understanding. Shema Yisrael is not only hear, the voice, the sound, but it's to understand. What? Eich sha'Hashem Elokeinu hu echad mamash. What do you have to understand? That Hashem Elokeinu, this God, our God, you should know that he's echad mamash. He's one. What's the chiddush? The chiddush is not in this maimer that there's no 100 gods. There's no million gods. There's no polytheism, there's monotheism. It's a much deeper chiddush. The chiddush is echad mamish, the only one. Ve'ein oid milvada. There's nothing outside of him. Bashamayim imav alaretz mitachas ein oid. Why? Sha'achiyus hanimshach bashamayim u'ba'aretz. You have a whole world. What do you mean ein oid milvada? It's the ganze Welt. There's a heaven, there's a earth, there's people. The answer is the life that gives life to heaven and earth. Hurak ki Hashem Elokeinu hu Elokim b'chinas tzimtzum. Uketipa miyam ha'koyonos. That's where Hashem Elokeinu comes in. You could have said Shema Yisrael, Hashem Echad. You did it. Hear, O Israel, God is one. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Why so much harichis? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Echad. Get to the point. And then davening could have taken shorter. Taka shorter, because here's a whole isbeinus that takes time. So he says, no, Hashem Elokeinu is a hezber. Why? Yud Kei Vav Kei is the chiyus. Haya, hoive v'yiyeh. Yud Kei Vav comes from the word mahava, to bring into existence. Vayihi. Haya, vayihi means being, existence. Isness. Isness. I-S-N-E-S-S. Isness. That's Yud Kei Vav Kei. All the isness that you experience is Elokeinu. What's Elokeinu? It's Elokim, it's b'chinas tzimtzum. It's kitipa miyam ha'koyonos. It's a drop in the ocean. V'hatipa v'chiyus ha'i klulu miyuchedes b'matzila mamish. And that tipa is still in the ocean. It's still in the ocean. It's not only a drop of the ocean. The whole ocean is in every drop. You're not just a drop of the ocean. The entire ocean exists in every drop, because the drop is in the ocean. What you see as a drop, the whole ocean is in that drop. The tip is still in the Yam HaKoyonos. So the whole world, HaGreise Welt, emes, but the whole world is chiyus, it's all energy. Everything is energy. Matter is also energy. Everything is consciousness. Everything in the world is consciousness. In science and physics, everything is consciousness. There's awareness, there's letters, there's DNA, there's an inner vitality in everything, an inner spiritual core in everything. It's all consciousness, the world. That's why the whole world is one. That is all Elokim. So this Hashem, the isness, which is the Hishavos, which comes from Hashem, it's Elokeinu, it's one tippa. And it's not that that tippa is really detached. The ray left the sun. The light wave left the sun. Like in our case, the light wave leaves the solar core. The light wave is in the solar core. B'meila Hashem Echad. If that's the case, the only real reality, the real reality of every moment is intimacy with Hashem Himself. Einoid Mulvada. So Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu. Hatip b'chayis hayah klulu miyichedes b'matzila mamash b'bchinas soivav kalalmin. Shalamayla minay shtal shalus sheruchni is v'gashmi is shavin lefonav kachashecha kaira. Every line here is a ganze Welt. The Tippe is still submerged in its source. What is its source? Its source is called Soivav Kalaman, which is beyond the evolution of the world, where Ruchnius and Gashmius are completely identical. Where what we call on some levels Ayin is really just like the Yesh. Because that Ayin, just like the Yesh, is all submerged in him. Soivav Kalaman would be here. The euphemism, the expression of Hashem himself, the ocean. Mamala Kalalman is the drop that is extracted and becomes the source of all of the worlds, the consciousness of all of the worlds, and that itself, you have so many different worlds, and then you have Ruchnis, and lower Ruchnis, and lower Ruchnis, and lower Ruchnis, and lower Ruchnis, and Gashmis. But really, this whole tip is still in Soivav. It's still all Ayin in Soivav, and Ruchnis and Gashmis are completely Shava, Kachashecha, Ka'ira, light and darkness, because it's all completely in the ocean, submerged in the source. This doesn't happen by davening. By davening, one ought to allow himself the mental space to tune into this.
Proactive.
One second, okay? Let's learn another few lines. Shalom. Yeah. Shemizeh, from this. What's from this? From the source. Baruch. Now he goes to the second line. Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusay. So you see how he's teaching. This is his art scroll pirush on Shema and Baruch Shem. But it's more than translation.
This is really the real answer to the revisionist question as a little boy about how do you get vahafta? If there's
that's the arteries. The arteries.
That was what he asked as a
yes.
little boy. This is the real answer.
Yeah.
I think we quoted it was the answer on Baruch in the middle.
Baruch Shem.
Really, the Elokeinu itself answers the question because it shows that there's a tzimtzum.
Right, and that's going to be expressed in Baruch Shem. That's what he says. Shemizeh, from this Baruch. V'nimshach. The word Baruch in Mishnayos means drawn, communication. Like a brecha is called a pool. Why is it called a pool? Because it comes from a source of water. It gathers in your pool from a source, whether it's a wellspring or whatever it is you're drawing your water from. The Mishnayos have hamavriches hagefen, which is you graft a vine. You take a branch and you're mamshech it. You continue it into a new realm. You put it in the ground, you want a new tree to come. So shemizeh, from the source, baruch v'nimshach, beishtal shlos hamadreges p'chinas mamala kalam, comes out in the evolution, elikus, which fills the world. What do we mean fills the world? It tunes in, it's custom made to every single nivra, and therefore it's restricted energy. In order to give existence to a molecule of water, the divine energy has to condense itself into forming atoms of hydrogen and atoms of oxygen, and together it becomes a molecule of water. And the same is true with every single nivra, spiritual or physical, from a tiny worm to a mosquito to a beetle to an elephant, a hippopotamus, to a human being, to the sun or to any other galaxy or planet or star, to a blade of grass. All mamale kalalman, which is a tipa that was all submerged in the source. P'chinas shem kvoid malchusay. This is the name. We go back to Hayahu Ushmai Bilvad. This is the name. This is the kavod. Kavod is never you. Kavod is how you're perceived. This is malchusay. Malchusay is never you. Malchusay is your relationship. Shem kvoid malchusay liyas ila va'alol ruchnis v'gashmis. Where there could be a whole system of ila and alol. Ila is antecedent, and alol is the effect of the antecedent, the child. Ruchnius, which is the ila, Gashmius, which is the alol. And every level goes further and further in this evolution, which is all mamala kalam. This is what you're thinking. Shema Yisrael. Hashem is Elokeinu. B'meila Hashem echad. And thus, the world is Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusay, creating La'olam Vad. Ilazois. So what's the bechein? This is all moichen. What's the ubechein? Ilazois v'ahaftas Hashem Elokecha. Doesn't say v'ahaftas Hashem. It says v'ahaftas Hashem Elokecha. She'yih havaya mamish Elokecha. The Yudke Vavke should become your God. Not that you should love Hashem only. V'ahafta. What you want is that the Yudke Vavke should be a lekecha. Liyos nichlal ba'orein soif baruch hu b'tshuka v'tzimoya. The person wants to be part, wants to be submerged in the oil of the Ein Sof with desire and thirst. Oh, and a person really appreciates this. He doesn't have any other chayfetz, any other desire outside of him. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, I think it's Ayin Aleph or Ayin Beis, Mili b'shamayim, who do I have in heaven? Ve'imcha, with you, lo chafatzti ba'aretz. I don't want anything else. Why? Listen, why? Why not? We all want things. Ki be'emes ein oid mulvadoi. Because be'emes, there's nothing outside of him. Ulemi yachpoit zulasai. So there's nothing else to want. There's nothing else to want. Ulemi yachpoit zulasai. If ein oid mulvadoi, there's nothing else to want outside of him. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. Was will still. That's the word. V'haftas Hashem alekech ulemi yachpoit zulasai. If ein oid mulvadoi, there's nothing else to want. All desires are all based on a concealment, on a distraction of truth. When you're not distracted by the truth, it's not that you have to develop a new avos Hashem. It's the only reality. If there's any desire, it's to Him, because there's nothing else to desire. The only truth of reality is the divine. That is the truth of all reality. So that's the gather of avos Hashem. There's nothing else to want. Everything else, its mitzias is only based on a lack of real awareness. Whenever there's real awareness, this is it.
What's ve'ilazos mean? What does ve'ilazos mean?
Ilazos, hence, thus, the bechein, like, what's the emotional result? Where does this lead me emotionally? So his beinunus, einoi, where does this lead me emotionally? It leads me emotionally to this space. V'imcha lo chafatzti. Let's say you have a person who's struggling with a challenge, let's say a food. He has a sweet tooth for sweet food, which is not good for him, and he struggles terribly. And he comes in to a home, and on the table he sees chocolate bars that are extremely tempting. And this whole struggle, he just made a resolution, he's not touching this, and he's starving, and it's all there, and the host gave it to him, and the host is sitting there, and it's on the table, it's there for him to take. He's struggling and struggling, yes, nisht, yes, he has to have this whole isbeinunus, how bad it is for him and destructive, but I'll start the diet tomorrow, in the meantime it's delicious, it's only one, it's not two, it's only two, it's not three, it's only three, it's not 100. My brother was worse, my father was worse, I'll become healthy tomorrow, etc. Dr. Michelle is not looking, my wife is not looking, etc. But it's a shrekliche struggle. And he surrenders, he falls prey, and he takes it, and he puts it in his mouth, and he discovers that it's plastic. It's plastic.
Will that work for nothing?
Huh?
Will that work for nothing?
It's plastic. And he's not struggling anymore. I mean, maybe in theory he would like to go to the store, but he's not struggling anymore. He's not struggling anymore because there's nothing to struggle against. That's what he's saying here. You typhus. It's a whole different word than avos Hashem. Usually in all the svarim, there's avos olam haza and there's avos Hashem. And the struggle is, do I choose God or do I choose the world? He says, no, it's all plastic. It's all plastic. If there's anything to love, if you feel you should love, there's something to love. Anything that you love, if you're loving something that exists, truthfully, it is the divine. You have Avos Hashem already. Because anything that you love, the panemius of it, the core of it, is the elikus of it, the godliness of it.
So the chocolate should be good too.
Now I'm giving a mashal. That sometimes you focus on the struggle. There's two things. There's this food, there's that food. Right? I can eat the fruit, I can eat the chocolate, I can eat the vegetable, I can eat the chocolate. I go for the chocolate. Then you see there was nothing there. It's not pshat, there's a competition between two worlds. There was nothing there. And this gives us a whole perspective in Torah Baal Shem Tov and the Balatanya about the whole concept of dealing with Taivas Olam Hazeh. Generally, in Sifrei Musar, we're always dealing with a struggle. And it becomes very difficult. Imagine you tell a guy, you're not allowed to eat carbs and you're not allowed to eat sugar. But you know where you put him for 90 years? In a bakery. And he has to stay in the bakery for 90 years. And wherever you look, here's black and white, here's cheesecake, here's danishes, here's cinnamon, here's 7-layer cake. I don't want to get too graphic at the moment. It's early in the morning. But I could, as you know. Especially this area. And you have to be there for 90 years. And you tell him, but if you don't touch it, you're going to get Olam Haba. If you don't touch it, you're going to get Olam Haba. So first of all, very few people win. And second of all, even if you do, it's torturous. And there has to be repression. You have to repress a certain part of yourself. You're seeing it and hearing it and looking at it. Yoimam v'layla, that's it there is. And you say, no, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. But this is the whole world. This is your world. Over here you have a whole different perspective. It's a whole different approach. Imagine the same person is in the bakery, right? But he suddenly discovers that everything that he sees is plastic. Okay, but fine, yeah.
Take a kid to the store.
They say what Rabbi YY so somebody, a big tzaddik, he was a child, and he went by a prison, and there were gates all around, and he asked his father, what are the gates for? They said that the prisoners shouldn't run away. He says they could just not put negelwasser by their beds, and they won't be able to run because they didn't wash negelwasser. So you're saying the same word. Fine. Add it up. But the word is not, there's one reality that I could look at, and that reality is spiritual and transcendental and above. But I'm not that person. I'm not that person. I'm a very physical person. I'm in a physical world. The yesod that's being explored here, that's being explained here, is V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha means not love God despite the world. Love God because you love the world. Because that's the reality. That's l'mi yachbod zolosai. That is reality. If there's love, it's to God. If it's not to God, it's not love. Because you're loving something that doesn't really have a toich, doesn't really have a metzias. Its metzias is coming from concealment, from distractions. Which there are many concealments, there are many distractions, viduzakst, of course. But the deeper you go into your own reality, into the reality of the world, you discover the Einoid Mulvadai. On one level, because the chiyus of everything is a lakus. On a deeper level, even that chiyus is ayin, submerged in him himself, like in the ocean.
So then you can eat the dates.
Well, that depends.
This also opens you up to hate God.
Ooh, why? Too much. It's too much.
I mean, if somebody, depending on how somebody observes the world, if they observe cruelty and hardship and challenges, and then Einor Milvada is this is a cruel guy.
What was the question?
Is it hate or is it denial? It's kind of backing off from God's reality.
He's saying if somebody experiences life in a cruel way, right? So Einoid Mulvade means it's all God. So he says it opens up a terrible source of hate or anger or frustration or resentment. No, what's your response to that?
To go to the Bali Musa.
And what do they say? They'll still say this hashkacha. It's not that.
We're gonna get it the
This
next
is the
word.
tafkid.
The next word.
No, then we go back to the last line.
Chukas.
To see within the Ra that it's really Tov underneath, the higher level of insight. It just looks like
Nechasha nechayshas.
Before your eyes. Before your eyes.
Nechasha nechayshas.
I'm not saying
It's a hard pill.
I'm
It's a
just,
very hard pill.
I'm not saying it, I'm just
No one's saying it's easy.
Okay, we have what to think about, yeah?
This class is brought to you by the yeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.